Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G, and I'm here every Monday night bringing you spiritual conversations. I have guests from all walks of life, all different careers, different perspectives, and we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about careers, we talk about current events, we talk about spirituality. And our hope is that when you leave, you are inspired by some of the things that we say. One of the things that's important to me is to talk about spirituality from a practical point of view. How does it support you in your everyday life? I talk about a spiritual toolkit, which is my favorite thing because it's what practices do you have to support you in your life? What's in your spiritual toolkit? And when we talk to people and we listen to the different practices that are there, we can adopt some of the practices that will be personal to us. So I'm around every day on Facebook as a Reverend Grenetta Mason and also on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. I hope that I can support you in finding joy and living your best life with grace and ease. So tonight I have a special guest, Jose Guerrero. And Jose is an educator, he's an influencer, and he's a creative. I'm excited to have Jose join us tonight for Spiritual Conversations with Reverend G. Jose, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show tonight. I was thinking about I haven't seen you in a while, but all the times that we get together, we really have great time. So introduce yourself to the people. I generally like give this title, or I like that what I said about you, like educator, influencer, creative, right? That felt really good to me. So introduce yourself to the people.
I mean, it felt good to me too. Hello, my name is Jose. Jose Antonio Guerrero. I am an educator. I am a dean at a charter school out here in Brooklyn. I also make videos on Instagram and YouTube, really just talking about my life, but also shining a light on a lot of the social justice topics that are really relevant. And I missed you. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me. I've been a fan of this show for a while. I've been waiting patiently.
Yeah,
And
you
I'm so
got
happy to be here.
now you're here. I know I was thinking about how I wanted to start, and I think let's talk about being where you are now, being a dean of a school. And I know you started out in youth development at a nonprofit and working with youth, and now talk to us about that transition from being in a nonprofit to now being an educator in education.
It was a huge leap of faith, to say the
Mhm,
least. I knew that I enjoy working with kids. I just
mhm,
want to teach curriculum. Specifically, I don't want to teach white curriculum to Black and brown children. That's just not what I want to do. I want
mhm,
to be able to support in a different capacity. And for a long time, I felt like I can only do work within the nonprofit, where I was teaching like acting and music and leadership skills and things like that. And then I decided I just wanted to change. And so I left
mhm,
that. Didn't know where I was going just yet, but I was like, I need to change.
mhm,
And the same school that I was working at, with the after school program, the principal gave me a call and he was like, you need to come work for us. I didn't even know you left. Come work for day school. And
mhm,
he invited me to be a behavior specialist. And from there, I just worked my way up. And
mhm,
next year will be my first year as a dean. This past year, I was an associate dean. So I'm
mhm.
really just excited for the trajectory of my career and how quick it's happened, because this has been all in the span of 3 years.
Wow. You said a behavior specialist, right? And that
Mhm.
just triggered something for me. What does that look like? And what it triggered for me too is in working with brown and black kids, right? We need to address some of the behaviors. We need to address it in different ways than it's probably been addressed before, and even recognize the underlying causes of why they may be behaving in such a way. So, talk to me a little bit about what you do as a behavior specialist in the school in particular, right?
Right. So one thing that like we know in the education field, specifically at my school and my network, is that behavior is a form of communication. And so as a behavior specialist, my job was to really sit with students and really get clear on what are you communicating. And it falls under two buckets. There's either a developing skill that you just don't have yet. And so your behavior is your way of communicating because you don't know how to communicate anywhere else, or there's a need that you have that's not being met. And so my job is to get down to which one is it, and how can I support you in developing the skill that you just don't have yet, or getting that need that's met. And I do that by partnering with the student, partnering with the teachers, but also partnering with the families, because sometimes those unmet needs are coming from home. And so that's my responsibility. And then being able to support teachers in doing the same, because sometimes you're just, as a teacher, you have so much going on that you're just like, I don't even care about what you're trying to communicate. I just need you to get this lesson. And it's like, all right, well, let's take a step back and let's really invest in getting clear on what is it that the student is trying to communicate when they're displaying behaviors that are off vision.
That what comes to mind also is I'm thinking about a lot about the kids after COVID, what they have to go through now to go back into the schools. And I always think about, is there a service for that? And I know probably not, right? Where there's where this is like so much help for kids in the school going back, right? Supporting them and just being comfortable. And that's part of your role at your school.
It is. It's part of my role, but we also have social workers and counselors. That's definitely a need in schools. I would say that usually it's like one social worker for like 3 or 4 schools, which is just not enough, especially coming out of COVID. My school in particular, we have 2 that are just for our school. This is our first year having 2 social workers, because we do understand that coming out of COVID, there's a lot of need for our students. We were remote the entire school year, and our students were fed up. They were like, we're ready to be in the building. But for some of them, unfortunately, they experienced a lot of trauma, whether it was losing friends or family, or just being in a home that may not be absolutely safe all the time. The school is definitely a safe haven for some of our students. And so, yes, that's part of my role to be able to support. And I'm lucky that I get to share that role with social workers and counselors who are committed to doing the same thing.
And I know, and I saw your title, cultural, right? I was like, wow, cultural dean of culture, right? And I thought that's a great title, right? But I was like, oh, it's so interesting to think that you actually focused on the culture in a school, right? I think that having I guess I was thinking, I didn't know that when I was going to school that we had anybody just really focused on that, right?
Yeah, and usually the people that were focused on it when it was bad, right? So everybody, when they hear dean, the first thing they think about is like, you're the person that suspends students. The students get in trouble, they come to you. And that's one small aspect of my job. It's the part of my job I least enjoy. But as a dean of school culture, we get to like set the tone of the culture of the school. We get to like get a pulse check and say, how are students feeling about our school? What can we do to make the experience better for students? And then train our teachers to create their own cultures in their own classrooms. And so I'm proud of my role. It's a role, again, I think that's needed in different schools across the nation, because again, teachers are overworked and underpaid. They got so much going on. As much support as they can get is helpful.
Right. And so is this just new in your school, or is this something that we can see just catching on in other schools? Like I'm saying, you're seeing more and more schools coming from that cultural perspective?
I would say it's prevalent in charter schools. I work in charter school network, and I know other charter school networks have the same role.
I didn't realize you're at a charter school. They have a okay, got it. Okay, it's charter school different, right?
Yes. But it's something that public schools are starting to catch on and starting to see, okay, we need someone who is focused on the culture of the school. And sometimes it's not always the principal. So in public schools, it might be the assistant principal. Like at my school, we don't have an assistant principal. We just have a principal, and then we have the deans, and each dean has their own role and responsibility. So public schools do have people, and I know that they're starting to focus more on how can we get that role to be more prevalent in that sector.
That is pretty interesting. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about, I know when we were talking, you talked about growing up, right? So let's talk about your experience, because I know you've done these videos about your life and sharing so that people can feel that they are not alone. And when you share your stories, you have other people feel, well, maybe I could share my story, or maybe there's someone I could talk to. So let's talk about the part of the trauma of being abused as a kid, right?
Mm.
And so, how did you navigate your way through that? And where are you now with that in supporting others in navigating their way through physical, emotional, sexual abuse as a kid?
Um, Abuse has been very prevalent throughout my upbringing, whether it was intentional or not.
Mhm,
My dad, who just passed away in April, he was an alcoholic and he was very
mhm,
abusive towards my mom growing up. So I saw it in my household.
mhm,
And then when my mom finally got the strength to leave, she got with another man who wasn't so nice, and was
mhm,
very verbally abusive to me and my sister. And then his brother was physically abusive to me, and he also sexually abused me as a child. And so it took me a long time to really step out of that. I suffered from depression in my childhood for a long time. And I remember speaking to a counselor, and they were just like, you have gone through so much at such
mhm,
a young age. Um,
mhm,
for me, my outlet was really school. I really enjoyed school, and I had the privilege of going to schools where teachers were really invested in me as a human being. Like they just loved me and they wanted to see me win so bad.
mhm,
One teacher in particular introduced me to acting, and that was my creative outlet, and it brought me a lot of peace
mhm,
um, through a lot of what I experienced, and that was great. I went on to being part of a theater company and just like really got to use my creative juices in a way that was impactful for me during that time.
mhm,
And then eventually, of course, doing workshops and programs that really helped me unpack some of the trauma and step into my what's next. Because the reality was I was stuck in that little kid trauma mode for most of my 20s. By the time I
mhm,
was 26, 27, I was like, something has to change. And
mhm.
that's when I went on to do the Momentum Workshop and start the journey of healing. And like, even now, I'm still in therapy doing the work that I need to do because it doesn't end.
Mhm.
But I'm in a better place. I know how to live with my trauma a
Mm.
lot better than I did before.
That is interesting because we look to support others, by saying, okay, here's some of the things. And I love that momentum took us through that. It has us like confront the things in our lives and then kind of work through them. And it is an ongoing process. It's a
Yeah.
continuous process in healing. I think about kids who and I think that's a part of what your mission is to support youth who are abused in any way and have them know that there is an outlet. I think I read something where you want them to know that they are loved, right?
Yes.
And so in doing that, it supports them because we carry it for years. Like you go throughout we just carry it until something somewhere, right? We could stop and say, but wait a minute, I don't have to live this story. I don't have to live through this, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's really important for our kids, right? To have that outlet, to be able to do that. I know also you said that at 16 you came out as gay. Now that must be a lot. I always think about an Afro Latino already dealing with all that. Then you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm gay," and then have to add all that onto right life, right? To me, it's just like a lot, right? So, what was that transition like? Did your parents accept you? How was it as you came out?
My parents did not
Okay.
accept me the way that I wish they would have. I
Mhm,
always remember, and my mom has come a long way. She's a
mhm,
lot more accepting now. But when I first came out to her, she was like, I love you, but I will never accept that. I will never accept you like that.
mhm,
And that, as traumatizing as it was, I feel like that was the final nail in the coffin where I just woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm done trying to like gain acceptance from my family. I feel like I spent my whole life trying to get acceptance. And then when they didn't accept me, I started going down the wrong path, trying to get like attention from them. And when she didn't accept me, I was like, I'm no longer living for you. I'm going to go live my life. I need to graduate high school. I need to get away and go to college. I need to go ahead and experience my life. And so it was a blessing in the sense of it woke me up and it shook me. And it was like, you know what? They're not going to accept you. And that's okay. You still have a responsibility to live your life and to like live it with a purpose because God put you here for a reason. So it was definitely hurtful. It took me time to really get to a place where I trusted my family, where I felt safe around my family. I'll be honest, there's still times I'm still trying to navigate that a little bit. They are like, we love you as you are. We accept you. Happy Pride. Bring a man around. I'm like, okay, I'm not there yet because it's still within me. So I still have to like do some work around that. But ultimately, it definitely was the wake up call I needed to be like, stop working for the acceptance of your family and just live your life as you are. Just be happy with who you are.
Right. You've always stood in being gay and proud of it as I've known you, but this has just been over the past 3 years. So I know you've gone through the stage of really accepting who you are and standing in it. And I've always seen you just stand in it, right? As I think about when we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, right? You got to get it right? The different changes and the different things that are going on now. And I know you're young. I think about you're like 29, some 27, 28, 29, right? That's young.
I'm 30 now.
You're 30 now.
I'm 30 now.
Right, I was 27, 28, 29, right? I knew it was something young.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a teenager, 16, and now as a 30-year-old, what are some of the differences that you're seeing now?
That's a really good question. When I first came out, I'll say this, I didn't have any examples of Black, brown, Hispanic, gay men thriving in any field. I just didn't. I didn't have it. I didn't see it in the media. I didn't see it in movies. I didn't hear it in music. I didn't see it at school. It just wasn't acceptable. My school didn't have a gay straight alliance group, none of that. I will say now, at least here in New York City, I can't speak for the rest of the United States. There's more acceptance. There's more representation. We still have a long way to go, but it's vastly different from when I was growing up. And I know for people who are older than me that are gay or LGBTQ plus, my experience is vastly different from theirs. I'm also thinking about how for much of the 80s and 90s, you know, a lot of gay people were shunned because of the AIDS epidemic and this idea of like, you can catch AIDS from me just by standing next to me. And now I there's a lot of more knowledge and people just know better now, which is great. But I would say definitely just like having representation. And for me, I stand on it because I want boys who are growing up in the hood, because I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, in the projects. I didn't see a lot of people like me that were gay to know like who you are is fine. We come in all different shapes, sizes, all different types of gay people. Like there is no one way to be gay, but also for them to see like how far we've come, and hopefully they'll pick up the torch and carry it for the next generation. That's always top of mind for me, is how can I prepare the people that are coming after me to carry on the legacy that I'm building upon, essentially.
Right. And I think about it because I'm of a whole nother 2 generations up from you, right? So my experience and how I was raised and my perspective, I'm open now, but I would say that's taken me a time to get to understand. And I think about like today's youth, like today's 12 and 13-year-olds who are now navigating their homosexuality, right? I think about everything is so out there, right? Everything is so information. Let's just say so much information, everything out there. How are these kids navigating that, right? And I'm sure it's probably different from when I was growing up. You would just say, yeah, like your parents said, you can't be that. I will never accept it. Go. It's a whole different world now. And I think parents need a lot of training. Because I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to be a parent thinking about the way I was raised and how my thoughts and beliefs and how I would navigate it. I'm different now. I have a more open perspective, but I still wonder with kids.
Yeah. There's still work that needs to be done with that. As an educator, I've experienced numerous times where I've seen a parent reprimand their child for displaying their interest in someone of the same sex. So it's not as we've come a long way, and that's why I say we still have work to do. What I will say is kids nowadays at a younger age feel more comfortable to just say it and live free and live their truth. I work at a middle school. In 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I have students who are just like, I'm gay, I'm bisexual, I'm a lesbian, this is what I like. At my age, that was taboo. I didn't hear that when I was their age back in the day. So their ability to put a name to it and feel so comfortable saying it freely, I think is really powerful. And they still face some of the issues that I face, where it's like their parents are just like, and I'm not accepting that. And now, like, versus, parents who are taking time to really allow their child to really go through the process, right? Because I will say for some of these students, they're still figuring it out.
They are.
But their parents should still be supportive and loving, because the worst thing you want them to do is try to figure it out from other people out in the streets, because you're not creating that space for them to do it. For me, I figured out a lot of my stuff from people out in the streets, and I've done things that, looking back, I wish I wouldn't have. And I wouldn't have done it if I had my family's support really allowing me a space where I can just talk about it or just go through the process and feel comfortable in doing so. And so that's one thing if anything, I would say to parents, like, just be supportive, allow them to go through it with you, because if they do not go through it with you, they're going to go through it with people in the streets, and you do not want that.
It's not the best outcome, right?
Not the best outcome at all.
And also you think about, and I think that's a very good point, because if you don't allow them the freedom, they won't come to you. They'll just go other places, right? And you rather have them get the information. That's a tough one, though, when we think about beliefs and what people believe and how everything has been instilled in us. And then we can move to religion. I see where you say you accepted God at 27, and that's interesting, because as a gay man, religion, spirituality, Christianity, right? All those things, right? How have you navigated it? And when you say I gave my life to God at 27, that's interesting for me, because I understand the concept of that, but what does that mean for you?
So for me, I started going to church, and I just felt like my spirit moved, and it was something about it. I started just really, because being a gay man for a long time, I've always had like a sense of religion and God. I used to go to church when I was younger, but it was forced upon me. So once I started coming out as gay and people started using the God doesn't accept gay people, I distanced myself from all that. And once I started to build my own relationship with God and getting to know him on my own, I was able to forge a new understanding of what does it mean to give your life to God. And so for me, it's like my commitment to truly live his like most important commandment of just being love on this planet, and making sure that I show up as love for him, for love for myself, and love for everybody on this planet, regardless of their race, their sexual orientation, the way they look, or anything like that. And so I remember I wanted to get baptized, and this church would not baptize me. The pastor took me upstairs and was like, I can't baptize you unless you say you're not going to be gay. And I remember feeling so embarrassed, because it happened minutes before I was supposed to get baptized. Like, my friends were there, I had to leave out. But it created a beautiful opportunity for me to be at a river, and there was a pastor, and I was able to get baptized. And since then, I've really focused on creating my own relationship with God. I still go to church. I do enjoy just like being able to worship with other people. But I soon became clear that I had to forge my own relationship and set my stipulations for my relationship with God, and not allow the outside world to tell me that I can't have a relationship
Mhm.
with God for whatever reason they say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting because I think you still go to church and you still sing in the choir or sing and do all that. And then you hear other people who sort of just throw the church away and say, "Oh, I've created spirituality, so I'm spiritual," right? And they do it in a lot of different ways. But I thought it was interesting that you were still able to embrace the church and still able to, go to church, sing with the choir, and do what you do, right?
I'm like, sing with the choir. You know something I don't
No,
know?
not sing with the choir, but I always see you playing music. You don't sing with the
I
choir.
love music.
Oh, so you were in theater and acting, right? I didn't know that, right? I thought that was like really interesting, a little surprise for me, right? when
Yeah,
you.
it's been a long time. I did it in my teens.
Mhm.
I was part of the MCC Theater Youth Company, and it was a beautiful experience. Then I went on to teach it. It's something I always toy around with, the
Mhm.
possibility of still going back because I just like I love it. It's it's one of my favorite things to do to just be able to perform and really bring joy to people through performance. I also played the violin for a long time when I was young. So
Mhm.
music and like just entertainment is in me. And there's always something saying, go back, go back, go back. I'm just waiting for
Mhm.
the right moment
Mhm.
to do so. And I know
Mhm.
like when it's time for me to move into that phase, God will make it clear and I'll be right there singing in the choir, like you said.
I want to sing in the choir. I'm projecting on you, right?
I'll take it. Maybe manifest it for me, please.
Singing in the choir, right? When talk a little bit about the series you did on the videos you did
Hmm.
on Instagram. Talk about that series and what you were sharing with people and what was the purpose of it and what were some of the outcomes of it.
Yeah, so I started posting videos on YouTube back in 2018 under Mateo J. Mateo is my fraternity name, J being my first name, and I use the name Mateo J Presents is the name of my YouTube channel, and it's also my name on Instagram. Um, and it was really just an opportunity for me again to do some of that work, to come to terms with who I am as a gay man and all the struggles that I've been. I just wanted to share that with the world. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that was missing for me to really heal and move forward in that healing process. So my first video was my coming out story, and it received a lot of views, like thousands of views.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people resonated with my story. A lot of people appreciated my story. Of course, you're always going to have the people who have something negative to say. And that video was actually the video that my siblings saw. And it opened the door for us to have a conversation about my sexuality because I had never told them. And it was also my mother saw it and was like, let's talk about this. I want you to feel more accepted. And so it paved the way for my family to really accept me and understand like what life was like without having their acceptance, which was powerful.
Mm.
And then from there, I just went on to share different perspectives. I did a video about being a gay Christian man because there are a lot of us. We're not like a
Wow.
minority. There are a lot of gay men
Really? Right. I
in
want
the church. So I was like, let me talk about it. I also talked about being an Afro Latino because a lot of people didn't know what that was and what
Right.
that means. And
And I
people,
remember you talking about being accepted as an Afro Latino, right? I thought that was an interesting part. You
yeah,
know.
because you know me, I'm very fair skinned, and so people tend to judge by what they see. And so I'm white passing. I already know if people see me in the street, if I don't say a word and they don't hear my name, they
Mhm.
might think that I'm white. And
Mhm.
so for me to proclaim I'm Afro Latino, I identify with the African roots of my ancestors because I'm a Puerto Rican man and because I have family members who clearly have those genes within them. And I've done my research, I've done my work. This is who I am as a person. There are people who are accepting and understanding there, and there are people who think that I'm trying to appropriate the Black culture. And there's two different things, like being Afro Latino and being a Black American. Those are two different things, and I understand that. And I'm also very clear on my privilege. Like being white passing, there's privilege. Being a
Mhm.
man, I have privilege. Like I'm not trying to insert myself in a culture that doesn't belong to me. I'm just trying to own the culture that does. I'm like, this is who I am at the core of it. And this is my ancestors. I carry them on my back. I can't deny that. So yeah, sometimes because of the way I look, people are just like, no, that's not true. You're white. I'm like,
right.
I have some family members who feel that way. I was having an interesting conversation with some of my family members who were like, yeah, like we're white. And I'm like, we're not white. Like, as much as you want to be, because that's a big thing in the Hispanic community. Like Hispanic, there are, and I made a video about this too. There are a lot of Hispanic people when they see the way Black Americans struggle, they're like, that's not my struggle. That's not my struggle. That's not my struggle. And I'm like, well, you're not white. So your struggle is more similar to this than it is to that of the white privilege. So let's just get clear on that. So
I think probably also to identify means maybe you could assimilate in. To identify, maybe you would get there or something. And identifying over here, I don't know. It's something about it because I do know a lot of Puerto Ricans that say they are white, right? And hey, whatever you want to be, I say, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting too that you got the pushback from being, saying that you were Afro Latino, right? All that pushback from that,
Yeah. I want to say I do get it to an extent, right? So like as a Black American, you can understand like there's sensitivity when you feel like someone is trying to come and appropriate my culture because the Black culture has been appropriated for centuries at this point. And so I understand the sensitivity behind it. And because it's such a new thing of people proclaiming like, no, I'm Afro-Latino, there's still this gap between understanding and like knowing like this is a real thing and being able to connect it to like, I'm not trying to assimilate your culture. I'm just trying to own my own. And I find that when people are able to sit down and have a conversation with me and understand that like I actually know what I'm talking about, they tend to feel different. But I do get the sensitivity from that standpoint. But then you have some people who just want to be ignorant and mess with me. So it is what it is.
Right. Just want to be ignorant.
Some of the comments, I'm like, this is not trying to educate me. This is just trying to hate me. It's all right.
It really is, right? And when we talk about I know you coached with me in Momentum, right?
Twice. I had the privilege twice.
Right. And we talk about you said that Momentum helped you a lot, right? And it's still supporting you and where you are now. What kind of experiences can you talk about that have supported you that might support others?
So what I enjoyed through Momentum Education is it was the first time I was taking time to really reflect on my life, reflect on the experiences that I've had, and really come to terms with the pain that I was holding on to for so long. I was finally facing all the things that I had been running from for so long. And what it really revealed to me was one, I had all this power. Like I like this power. It's like people will always say to me, you are a powerful man. And I couldn't see it. And the Momentum Education program was the first time I actually was able to say to myself, like, I am a powerful man. And I have to acknowledge that. It also pushed me to recognize that vulnerability is not weakness. Like I can be vulnerable and that can be a strength of mine. But it also showed me how much I need support. Because I think before then I didn't recognize how much I needed support.
Right. And even knowing you need it, but the big step is being able to ask for the support, right?
Yeah.
Being able to ask for the support, accept the support, and I love that the whole community aspect of it, where there's a whole group of people there supporting you and being your best self and getting through it, right? Yeah. I love that too about the reflecting part. So sometimes when I think there are like there's the coaching, then there's the therapist, and then there's the experiential trainings that we did in Momentum. And I always think about sometimes what's the difference between the therapy and the coaching and the experiential training. I think we've done all of them, right? And I think they speak to different things. Can you talk about your experiences with all of them and how you found them to be different and supportive?
Absolutely. So I would say with the experiential learning aspect, it was me doing the work. Like that was
Mm,
me doing the
doing the
work. They
work,
were
right?
guiding me in the
Mm-hmm.
work, but I was actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing these exercises and getting these realizations and getting these ahas because I was actually in it, doing it, not
Mm-hmm.
just like seeing it or not just answering questions. When I think of coaching, coaching to me was just like the guide, the support that I needed in doing the work.
Mm,
So a
okay.
lot of the great coaches, when I think about even not even you are an amazing coach, Baron as an amazing coach, Hashim as an amazing coach. What you all do really well is you don't give the answers. You are simply guiding and offering
Mm-hmm.
and allowing people to pick it up and then do the work. So the coaching is really for like whenever you get stuck or you've hit a place where it's like, I need to do this work, but I can't get through, the coaching is what lifts that block and lets you continue on. When I think of therapy, therapy is like unpacking some of the trauma because,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, there are certain exercises and coaching that will support you. But when you have deep rooted trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you need a professional who can be with you in a way that loves you, supports you, but also can push you without pushing you over the edge of things.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about my therapist, we talk for 45 minutes every week, and she's with me during those 45 minutes, and she'll push me, but she'll know not to push me too far because she doesn't want to unleash trauma that I can't yet handle. So that'll be the difference, I would say.
Okay, okay. Because I mean, when you just said that, it came to my mind when people use hypnosis, right, as a part of healing trauma, right?
Mm,
So hypnosis is one of those things that's used along with a person. I thought about, can you go too far? Is it too much? Like you said, they could take you so far where you can handle, they know how much you can handle at one time, right? And I
yeah,
was also thinking about when we think about therapy, we think we talk to someone, right? And
right.
having that person, when you said the professional is knowledgeable, right, in supporting you in working through the trauma or understanding the trauma, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have been in workshops together where something has come up and we've been
Right.
like, none of us back here are ready to support or have the capacity
To
to
support.
support you with
Mm-hmm.
that trauma that you're holding.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and even if we did, it would just be irresponsible of us to do it in a room with so many different people, not knowing how far that trauma may take you or may take anybody else in the room. And so when I think of
Mm-hmm.
therapy, it's like being able to do that work without the risk of not having the capacity to support or triggering the entire room in a way that you may not be ready for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting when people get to a point to whether they need therapy, coaching, or whatever, right? And understanding where to step in at what point. So I like those distinctions when you're talking about the trauma and getting to
Yeah.
the root of that trauma and having techniques to help support you. Oh, that's pretty good. When I was talking about, I talked about spirituality in your everyday life, right? And how you cope, right? And what spiritual practices support us as we go through in having us live our lives. If we're going through anything, what do we use? So, talk about what are your top three spiritual practices that support you?
So the first thing is every morning, before I do anything else, before I get my day started, I pause and I pray. I just give gratitude for being alive and then just like make my request, whatever's on my heart in that moment, whether it's like, God, get me ready for the week, or God, reveal to me areas in my life that I should focus on today. God, restore this relationship today. Whatever it may be, I pray first.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I do is I go through Bible plans. I use the U version of the Bible app. And so like I have plans set up for weeks that I'm not even there just yet. But I'm like, let me look for something. Where am I at in life? So when my dad passed away in April, I looked for Bible plans that were around grieving and mourning so that I could incorporate my spirituality into the grieving process. And that was very helpful for me. I don't think I would be in the space that I am in now without that. And I would say the last thing for me is really just finding songs that really make me feel the spirit of God moving, because I'm creative and I love music. There are just certain songs that, so like every Sunday I'm blasting my gospel music. When I wake up and I'm in the shower, I'm blasting my gospel music just to take a moment. And sometimes it helps me get into worship. Sometimes it helps me get into praise. And sometimes it just helps me just have gratitude for God and all that he's done in my life and how far that he's brought me. So those are my like top 3 practices that I do, I would say, on a daily basis.
That's why I thought you were in the gospel choir.
Because of the music. I'm saying, you breathing it into existence. It's coming. This time next year, I'll be on the show again talking about how I'm in the choir.
Because everything you said about the music is exactly what I feel. And I listen to gospel music in the morning and I sing, and it just really supports me. It's interesting because sometimes when I think about gospel music too, a lot of it, I said, oh, at one point I was like, oh, gospel music, it takes you from like the whole part of like going up the rough side of the mountain, right? Oh, I'm so down. And I want to change the lyrics, right? Because I love the music so much, right? And the way it touched my spirit. Some of it, I really want to change the lyrics. Like when they say I'm down and out, I want to say, no, there's joy, right? So I do. But there's comfort in the words, right? There's comfort in the music. So I really, really love gospel music. It brings me to a place where I know everything is going to be all right. And that's what I got from you too, right? With the whole music, right?
Well, music is one of the most powerful tools, or like whatever, powerful tools that we have on this planet. Like, music can get you ready to work out. Music can get you over a heartbreak. Music can get you close to God. There is so much that can be done with music. And a lot of people feel like music is not as good as it used to be. There's still a lot of amazing, beautiful music in the world if you go and look for it. Mainstream media may not televise it as much, but man, music is my first love. It'll be my forever love. Exactly. Besides God and my mama, but I love music.
Love, me too, right? Let's shift and talk about how, you know, there was COVID, and then there was all the racial and social injustice over the past year. Talk about, you know, the impact for you then and now. Where are we? Sometimes I think it goes out of the sight, right? Out of sight, out of mind, right? It's like, where are we now? But what was your experience doing all the social injustice that recently happened?
My experience was really like get out in the streets, and
you got out in the street.
Yes, I was like, no, I couldn't sit back and just watch it. It was a long time coming. So like the neighborhood that I grew up in, I witnessed it forever. Like the police in my part of Brownsville, literally just mess with people and just like abuse their power. And I myself have had many experiences where I was just walking home and the police are throwing me against the car because I fit the description. But to see just like the blatant murder of so many beautiful Black men and women, I think that just pushed everyone over the edge. And for me, the role I played, I was like, I need to get in the streets. I need to use my platform on Instagram, on YouTube. I need to call forward other people to do the same. I made a video for Hispanics in particular. I'm like, not so long ago, they were throwing immigrant Hispanic people in cages, kids in cages. And I'm like, we can't just sit back and continue to allow this racist system that is the police department, that is the government, to just continue to abuse us. And the only way to really counteract it is if we all come together and support and uplift one another. So that was my stance. And I will say my students, they really made sure that every single one of us understood, like, this is not okay. And me, as the adult, as the person that they look up to, as the person that's saying I'm here to support you, I'm like, it's not okay. And so I have to get out there for you. I have to make sure your voices are being heard. I mean, we even did a rally with our students and went to our local police department and was like, this is not okay. These are how our students see you. And so what are you going to do to shift that narrative?
Yeah, because it was important too when you think about how did the Latino community show up during that time, and there were a lot of back and forth things, in different debates between people, Black people who had Latino friends who felt that they didn't come through and they didn't say the right thing. So there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah, we live in a world, unfortunately, where people feel like it's not my business, right? So it's not happening to me, so that's not my problem. And I think that's a major issue in our society. It's like we have to have a collective responsibility for everything that's going on. So just because a Hispanic person, you don't see a Hispanic person getting gunned down, that doesn't mean that you can sit back and act as if nothing is happening. You have a collective responsibility, because the reality is it could be any one of us, honestly.
Right, exactly. And I think about the end result of all that. Where are we now? What do you think's happening right now?
I think that we are making slow but steady progress. I think the Derek Chauvin verdict was one small, and I want to emphasize very small victory. But there's still like a lot of work that needs to be done. You hear of all these laws that are being passed to suppress Black voters.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot about Breonna Taylor and her as a Black woman. Is something that Jada Pinkett Smith said that I agree with, is like, woman is the most disregarded person in our society. And like, this woman was shot in her apartment and nobody was charged with anything. And so there's progress, there's slow progress. But with the progress, there's still a lot of obstacles that are being placed to still keep our people oppressed, to keep us like small, and to make sure that the movement doesn't last. What I love is that it is 2 years later, it is a year later, it is months later, and we are still like, it's not enough. It's not enough.
Exactly.
And so we just have to keep that going. Keep that going.
I'm big on, I was corporate, right? So I'm big on hit it there. Let's get to corporate. What are we doing? What changes are we making there, right? So that's one of the things that's important to me, to see those changes being made. And I looked on the television, and it's so interesting. I'd never seen this commercial from Amazon where this Black woman is making really great strides at Amazon to get Black businesses in. And I was like, oh, you get to kind of see some of the changes that are happening through all of this. And like you said, we have a long way to go. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, so that's happening, right? Because we're always looking to see what's going on, what's the difference now. And I always think about how when it's hot, it's in the media, then it goes away, and then we're like, what's going on now? But as you said, a lot of things are still going on.
And a lot of Black businesses are thriving, which to me is like, yes, let's do it. Like recently, Beyonce was rocking, she was rocking a purse from a Black-owned business. And it was just so powerful. People were going crazy because they're like, I own that purse. I own that purse. I own that purse. So there's so much support. There's a cafe in Brooklyn, Lips Cafe. I remember it opening up. We actually threw an event there before they were even open, and it's thriving so well. Another Black-owned business. So many Black-owned businesses in New York City that are thriving. I'm really proud about that.
Like, I say Brooklyn is it, right? But
where's that?
Also, and just seeing as I look in Brooklyn, black-owned wine companies like our one of Lovely Wine, right? I'm seeing
Oh,
more and
lovely
more.
wine. Shout out to my sister Amara. I love lovely
Right,
wine.
right. And so that's really inspiring to see, and just to see blacks move into other areas, right? In other businesses and creating other things. I love her wine too. So that's really positive too. The entrepreneurship, to see blacks really out there building businesses. I like that. Also, the whole emphasis on support your black businesses, right? And I don't think it's like exclude the others, but pay particular attention to supporting black businesses, because that's how they will be successful and continue to rise and get better and make more money,
Yeah.
right?
And
Um,
in our community, every other ethnicity can have a business that's thriving, but it was very rare for a long time to see a black business thriving. Like you will see Hispanic restaurants and
right,
Asian restaurants and
right,
Middle Eastern restaurants
right.
thriving, but you wouldn't see a lot of black restaurants thriving, or any black business for that matter thriving. And so even me as an Afro Latino, I want my Hispanics, I want my black family members to win. I want the whole world to win, essentially. But the
Mm-hmm,
reality is, in the space that we're in right now, we have to
mm-hmm,
support black businesses. We have to support black entrepreneurs, because that's the area where there's the most need for support right now.
exactly. And that's the area where we can really grow too and expand
Yeah,
and wealth and build wealth, real
yeah,
wealth, right? Because we're so working for somebody else is never getting the real money. I worked for the bank for a long time. And I was always say, you never will pay me enough for how much you get it. Right.
no, hello,
For the money that's going through and all the money, you could never pay me enough, right? For that. But I'm really excited to see. I want to see us get the financial backing. I think that's one of the important things too, is to have the financial backing to support us to sustain and build our businesses. So I'm
agreed.
really, really, really excited to see a lot of the black businesses start to thrive. Like I said, Brooklyn got all the black restaurants, right? The black
Yes.
businesses. It's really, really thriving out there. I'm excited about that. So, I mean, we've talked and talked and talked, right? One of the things I know that's important to you is supporting people in finding their purpose. And even with
Mhm.
you, how do you work with them in supporting them? Because when I think about finding your purpose, we wait till we're like a certain age and we're like, what's my purpose, right? In life, right? But as a young person, being really able to explore what you want to do and be creative and find your purpose. How are you working doing that with your youth?
So I take interest in anything that they're interested in, anything they're passionate about, and I like get them to see that whatever you're passionate about, you can
Mm-hmm.
turn that into your purpose. You can turn that
Mm-hmm.
into your career. If you love it, you can go ahead and do it. No one can stop you. But I also
Mm-hmm.
encourage them to explore, right? Because at a young age, you might think this is what I want to do. Great, I'm here
Mm-hmm.
for you. Let's look at these high schools. Let's look at these colleges. But
Mm-hmm.
what else? Like, what else do you want to do? Particularly when I think
Mm-hmm.
about my students who love rap and love basketball. That is beautiful. That is powerful. But
Mm-hmm.
I also know that those industries are set up to only allow like 1% of people in. So let's explore, what else do you like? And
Mm-hmm.
let's figure out, can you turn that into your purpose? And the reality I also try to get my students to see is you can have it all. you
Mm-hmm.
can you can do music, and you can go ahead and be an entrepreneur. You can do basketball and invest and know about stocks and get your money right through that as well. So just trying to get them to see that their passion can be their purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
also have fun, explore, see what it is that you like. If I didn't explore acting, if I didn't explore music, I wouldn't know. If I didn't try, if at 16 years old I didn't decide to work at a summer camp, I may not be in education right now. That was me exploring and really trying to see what is it that I love to do? What are the things that I love? So yeah, that's usually what I try to impart on my students. And on my staff, you would think that for teachers, some of them also don't know just yet, like what their purpose is.
That whole thing about waiting until you're older to say, well, what's my purpose?
Yeah, and it's like, let's get clear. I had this young man, I was his coach at work, and I had to sit with him, and I'm like, what is it that you want to do? What do you value? And what is it, where is it that you want to go? And I was able to support him in moving into high school because he's like, I love education. I just don't like the middle school population. Great. So let's get you into high school. Even with adults, still having those conversations, because like you said, sometimes we reach 25, 30, 35, even 40, and still are just like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know my purpose. It's never too late to discover it.
Exactly. I like what you said too about, you know, what are you passionate about, but giving the message of being an exploration. Giving the message that for now this could be good, but there's so many things. It's so open, right? And being willing to do that, right? What just popped into my mind is how for me I was set on a certain career path, right? It was set up, go this way. I don't know that there was passion in it, right? I don't know that any of that. I just know that here's what I needed to do to get wherever I was going, right? Something like that, right? But with the difference to think about it from what are you passionate about? What do you really like? To think about it from that perspective might have led to a different thing, because at one point, after being in computers and system and banking, I didn't want to do that anymore. I'm a people person.
Right? You are a people person. I'm glad you got out of that industry.
All right. And so, yeah, it's just interesting. But like you said, I had the opportunity to explore all of it. So I did that. And then at a point, I was like, oh, no, it's not working for me. Then I was able to move into something different. So it's really good. And what I appreciate and love about you is that you're working with youth. And I just think there's so much that they need, and what you're giving them and your experience, right? Even with the momentum and the leadership and the transformational stuff, being able to support youth from that perspective is so great. So I really would just say thank you for what you do, and just keep doing it. And yeah, hopefully we'll coach again, right?
I'm down. You let me know. Wherever you at, I'm coming.
Yes. All right. So it was so good having you.
So good catching up with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And thank you for joining me. I'll be in touch.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. Thank you for joining me tonight on Conversations with Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night from 8 to 9 p.m. You can find me also every day on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason, and on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. I would like to leave you tonight with joy and happiness, and I would love to support you in living your best life with joy, with grace and ease. Have a great, great week.